Hello, welcome to my channel where I talk mostly about watercolour painting. So today I'm going to be doing a really experimental painting, and I'm using a little bit of gouache paint as well, and I'm adding some mediums to my paints. I'm just trying to see how much texture I can add and how many layers, and keeping the colours bright. So I actually used a painting that I did before as a base. I really liked this painting, but when I came back to it I didn't feel so precious about it, and I thought that it would be an ideal starting point for this more experimental painting. Okay, so to start with, I had these colours and this Aquapasto medium. I had titanium white, cobalt blue, burnt sienna gouache, and I think it was an ultramarine gouache. I do add some other colours and mediums, so I'll talk about them as I go, but the first thing I did was I made up a mix of the ultramarine gouache and the white watercolour paint, which is more or less like white gouache paint. And I added something called Aquapasto, which is a medium that I've talked about quite a lot on my channel. You can add this to watercolour or gouache, and it just adds a bit of body to the paint, and it means that you can scrape marks into the paint. That's what I'm doing here. And I did have, on one of my other videos about Aquapasto, I had quite a few people asking, isn't it just the same as gouache? And the answer is that it isn't the same as gouache, because one, when you add it to watercolour paint, it retains its transparency. And actually, if you add it to gouache paint, it does change the consistency of the gouache. I find that it makes it easier to score marks into the gouache. So it's a really great medium, and I'm going to be using it quite a bit on this painting. Here I've added the Aquapasto just to some cobalt blue watercolour paint, so that's a more transparent layer going in there. I'm really trying to mix things up here, and like I said, I'm not worrying about the composition too much, but I am trying to think about the white paper that I've got and not cover up too much of the white paper, because that's going to really add some bright areas to this painting. And actually I've got a green there, and I added a bit of Aquapasto to that. I'm just checking my composition here, and then I get my brush. I'm just sort of rolling it. I'm really experimenting with different ways of getting the paint down, and I got my knife as well, and I tried to make some marks, and I actually decided to sort of scrape the paint across with the knife, and that produced some quite interesting texture as well. So I already feel like I've got quite a lot of different textures going on here, and I'm quite happy, although the edges of those shapes are a bit hard, so I'm going to be softening those and thinking of ways of adding more layers and more textures on top as well. So here I ended up adding more burnt sienna on top of that burnt sienna watercolour paint. I didn't use the gouache actually, I used the watercolour, and this is just layering of the watercolour, which can make the colours brighter. So I'm using my knife there to make some lines. So I decided to add a bit more of this green, which is a watercolour paint called Tear Vert, which I really like. It's a sort of muddy green colour, and it has a different texture to some of the watercolour paint, so it's quite an interesting colour. Okay, so the other medium that I really wanted to use that I didn't talk about in the introduction is this iridescent medium, and I just added this to a mix of the cobalt blue and the white. I really wanted to add a layer on top that was going to be bright. That's not something you can do with watercolour, but with the titanium white you can obviously add lighter layers on top, and it makes the paint opaque as well. So I added quite a lot of the iridescent medium to this layer, and I also put a little bit of the Aquapasto in. I wanted to be able to make marks in the paint, so that's going down there, and I was really quite happy with this iridescent medium. It has these pearlescent particles in it, and I think strictly speaking you're supposed to add it to watercolour or watered down gouache, but I did still feel like it added a bit of a shine to this mix, so I liked it. And then obviously, because I've added the Aquapasto to this mix, I was able to scrape some marks in this paint as well. You could still do this probably without the medium, but I feel like the lines It takes the lines better if you do add a bit of the Aquapasto, but you can experiment with just adding lines into this sort of thicker paint without the Aquapasto if you don't have any. And here I've got a shaping tool as well, so I added some thicker lines with that. And I was really feeling quite happy with this painting, but it's still not quite finished, even though I didn't want to worry too much about the composition. I wanted to feel like it was finished. Really, it doesn't feel quite finished. I decided to put a darker bit in the top right just to sort of balance out the composition a little bit. And also I think I might put something on this area here, maybe to cover up, maybe to sort of unify the painting a bit. Okay, so for this layer I mixed Cobalt blue with Payne's grey, which is a colour that I use quite often. It makes this really nice sort of dark petrol blue colour. And again, I mixed it with a little bit of the Aquapasto medium. And I just wanted to balance out the tones really and have this sort of much darker tone in contrast to the lighter tones. And I was just sort of thinking about how to finish this painting off, and I decided to add a layer, an area to the bottom right section to kind of try and unify it. And actually what I decided to do was to paint onto some greaseproof paper and see what would happen if I used that to sort of transfer the paint onto the painting. And that is the result. I didn't film the beginning bit, unfortunately, but I got this sort of texture just from when I put the paint onto the paper. It didn't go on completely smoothly. I got these sort of splodges and dots, so I just decided to smooth those out with a squidgy towards the bottom, but I left them towards the top, and I was really quite happy with this effect. So I feel like the painting is finished really. I could probably carry on with it, but for the purposes of this experiment and the purposes of this video, I felt like it was time to stop, and I'll be able to refer back to the painting later, and I might take it further, or I might just apply some of these techniques to future paintings. And I think there I was just scraping away some of those dots with the squidgy. So I hope you've enjoyed this demonstration. I'll list all the different mediums and paints that I used in the description, and obviously this has been really experimental and about creating textures, and that's not something that I do in all my paintings, but it's something that I think can really add to any painting. And hopefully this video has given you some ideas maybe about ways that you can do it while still sticking within the context of watercolour, and obviously I've used gouache paint as well. So if you like the video, then please hit like. You can add a comment as well, and if you want to see similar videos in the future, then please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Okay, thank you, bye.